Hello, 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 everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. This is Viper Strike 95, and welcome on in, everyone. Happy Sunday, everyone. And today we're here back in our National Park series for part 16 of the series. Wait, Viper, where's part 15? Well, I'll tell you this, though. I got the National Park order wrong today. So remember what I said what was supposed to be Hot Springs National Park B15? Well, I did a certified Egypt moment, and I forgot Zion National Park. I didn't think about it until the last minute. Viper, you blitter in Egypt. I forgot Zion National Park was next. So we're gonna have to do Zion when we come back from our trip. But we're here at Kilo Papa Lima Kilo. We're in Clark Airport in Branson, Missouri. And today we're going to travel down to Hot Springs National Park in Arkansas. Now, of course, this is actually a very different national park than many of the other parks here in the United States. For one, this national park came around even before the concept of a national park itself. Secondly, whereas a lot of national parks are much more for visual scenery, like mountains or canyons or valleys or deserts, Hot Springs National Park is much more urban. It's more urban and stuff, so it's very different in that region, in that regard. So there's not going to be tons of bush lanes today. We're just going to do a simple fly around of the Arkansas landscape, of course. So that is what we're going to be doing today. And we will only have one bush landing, and that is we're at the very end. We'll be landing in Hot Springs National Tower in the pagoda, and we'll go on down over the overlook to Hot Springs, Arkansas. So that is what we're going to be doing today. So not a lot of bush landings, just some simple general aviation flying today. But yes, I updated the stream title, so it should now be 16 out of 63. Don't worry, 15 out of 63 is going to be Zion, and then I'll put the playlist thing back together for the VODs back in the order it should be. But that will not happen again, everyone, so my apologies. It's my fault for that one. So we're going to go, so here's our flight plan for this morning. We'll take off here from Branson, Missouri. We'll fly around Branson, go over to Table Rock Lake, make our way down over to Eureka Springs area, and then from there we'll head down into the Ozark National Forest, and we'll make our first of two lanes at Bird's Backcountry Airport for our first stop of the day. Our second and last leg will take us through into Ouachita National Forest. Then we'll go through Lake Ouachita, and then back to Hot Springs, Arkansas. So that's going to be our flight. This is a relatively simple flight. Only two legs for this one. And with not a lot of bush lanes, we don't have to waste too much time. So we don't have to really worry. Like I said, it's my fault for getting the national park order wrong. So we got this little Savage Norton up here today. So we're gonna get this bad boy ready to get going. We're gonna go get this autopilot armed. But yeah, it's my fault for getting this park order. So we don't have to fly super high altitude today. I mean, our max altitude for the entire trip is 3,500 feet, so we don't have to fly super high. So we don't have to worry about flying super high altitudes today. So we don't have to worry about that. So if you guys want to join on in, here's our route. So we're going to go ahead and make our way down over here. And we're about to take off here. So we're going to take off, make our way down. Bark. So if you guys don't know, this is Branson, Missouri. Very well-known entertainment area here in this part of in southern Missouri. Think of it as the Gatlinburg of Missouri, or the Pigeon Forge of Missouri. Very well-known theater district, lots of shows, a lot of entertainment stuff here. So, by the way, the pin link you see here is Hot Springs National Park from the U.S. National Park website. So we'll be heading our way over soon. So we'll be making our way over to here soon. So this here is the theater district. This is where a lot of the attractions are from, including the Whitewater Water Park, Die Hard Stampede, its own Titanic Museum. Of course, the big attraction here in Branson is Silver Dollar City, which is owned by the same people who own Dollywood. It's actually to our east, tucked within the hills of the Ozarks. So, we go further this way, of course. So we'll be making it this way, of course. So this is Table Rock Lake, by the way. This lake goes around quite a bit. It's actually fed by a reservoir. But this is a pretty popular area in this region for boating, of course. But yeah, beautiful area here coming up, of course. So that is Table Rock Park, of course. We're going to make our way through here and blast through here. So once we get through here, of course, we'll talk about our very first slide here. So we're going to get through here pretty quickly. So here's our slideshow for today. Hot Springs National Park here in Arkansas. It's one of our nation's more unique and unusual parks. You see, this area was actually originally created in an act of U.S. Congress all the way back in April 20th, 1832. That's right, this area was established before the concept of even a national park. In fact, it's 40 years even before the events of Yellowstone. Now, of course, it didn't become a national park until March 4th, 1921. Now, of course, I got my dates wrong because Zion actually came before this in 1919. So, again, my apologies, I got the national park thing wrong. Don't worry, when we did the national park in Zion, I'll put the playlisting in its own playlist, so it will be corrected for any future VOD watchers out there. So, that mistake will get cleaned up. So, this national park is really unique. In a sense, it was created before the concept of a park. However, the reason why they made this a park was because of the hot spring water, and apparently it's been popularly believed for centuries to contain medicinal properties. It was a subject of legend among the local Native American tribes. And following the federal protection in 1832, the city developed into a very successful spa town. And of course, Hot Springs didn't just become popular for its spa town. It also became a very popular tourist area during the early half of the 20th century. It was home to Major League Baseball spring training, illegal gambling speakeasies during the Prohibition era, and gangsters like Al Capone, horse racing, and all that have made a major part of Hot Springs, Arkansas. In fact, this was also technically the second smallest national park by area in the United States until Gateway Arch National Park came around in 2018. Hot Springs, since it is the oldest park maintained by the National Park Service, it was the very first national park to have its own U.S. quarter. The park itself also contained the hot springs flow from the west sides of Hot Springs Mountain, part of the Ouachita Mountain Range, and the hot springs have not been preserved in their unaltered state, though they have managed to conserve the production of uncontaminated hot water for public use. The mountains within the park are also managed with this, and the park itself also contains portions of downtown Hot Springs, Arkansas, making it one of the most accessible national parks in the system. Of course, there's numerous hiking trails and camping areas. Bathing in spring waters is available in approved facilities at extra costs, and the entire Bathhouse Row area is a National Historic Landmark, featuring many outstanding examples of Gilded Age architecture. So this is definitely a pretty interesting park, and it's also in 2022, 2.6 million people visited the park in 2022. So yes, this is a very much a visited national park. So it's definitely one of our nation's most unique parks. So that is a very important thing to cover here, of course. So big stuff going on with the national park. So now, how did this national park area got discovered? Well, for many years, this area was visited by chiefs and tribes of the numerous indigenous peoples. They call it the Valley of the Vapors at the time when Spanish explorer Hernando de Soto arrived in the area in 1541, and he was the first known European to see the springs. Members of many Native American tribes have been gathering in this valley for over 8,000 years to enjoy the healing properties of the springs. Of course, although in the 18th century the Kyle settled in the area, followed by the Choctaw, Cherokee, and other tribes, there was an agreement among the tribes that would put aside their weapons and partake in the healing waters in peace. Of course, in December 1804, William Dunbar and George Hunter made an expedition to the Ouachita Mountains and experienced the request of President Thomas Jefferson to study the native peoples and flora and fauna. And during that time, they managed to find a log cabin and a few rudimentary shelters used by people visiting the springs. One very important area here, of course, in 1807, John Emmanuel Prudhomme, of French colonial descent, became the first European American settler of modern hot springs. After he regained his health following 2 years of being in the hot springs, he returned home to his plantation in Red River, Louisiana, and more visitors and put log cabins for visitors. Of course, in 1818, the Quapaw Indians ceded the land around the hot springs to the U.S. and a treaty. And then, of course, the Quapaw were removed from the native territories in the 1830s. After Arkansas became a territory in 1819, the Arkansas Territorial Legislature requested in 1820 that the springs and mountains be set aside for federal reservation. 12 years later, the 22nd U.S. Congress formed a national reservation, granting federal protection for the thermal waters and giving Hot Springs the honor of being the first area designated for federal government protection. And of course, the Hot Springs Reservation was signed for public use in 1880. So yes, this whole area was formed prior to being a national park, which is actually pretty crazy to think that these hot springs are actually the first area to be protected for public use. That's crazy to think about. These hot springs are actually considered to be just as big for the people of the United States as Yellowstone was, which is actually pretty crazy. So we're going to turn left here very soon. Here, of course, we'll make our way. But beautiful area here today. The scenery is just really nice here in this Ozarks. So we'll go through and turn left. So we'll continue on this way. I hope you guys are doing well. So just a bit of a recap for some of my streams and content. A couple things happened. Of course, you all probably know the college football playoff happened on Friday, which was our game day flights, Oregon versus Indiana. And I got bad news for any people who like close games. The Peach Bowl was not close. At one point, Indiana was 35-7 in the first half. And at one point, it was 42-7 in the third quarter. It was not even close. Indiana completely dismantled Oregon in that game. It was not even fair. Mendoza had an absolutely insane game. Yeah, he only had 177 pass yards, but he got 5 touchdowns out of that. Kalen Black got 2 rushing touchdowns. Indiana's defense has been extremely dominant. I mean, it's not a surprise. Indiana absolutely won that game. They forced 3 turnovers, too. Yeah, Indiana is looking like to be the favorite to win the national championship, which is actually an unbelievable statement to even think about just a few years ago. Outside of that, of course, has been the NFL playoffs started. The Rams managed to actually beat the Panthers, but it was a lot closer than many Rams fans would have wanted that game being. The Panthers actually played quite well. I know they lost, but Bryce Young didn't do all that badly today. 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Not too bad for Bryce Young. Stafford was really good, of course. But Chuba Hubbard was good with 2 rushing touchdowns. Bryce Young got a rushing touchdown. But yeah, the Panthers didn't do that badly. They actually put up a great fight. And then the Bears and Packers played. Chicago managed to get a massive comeback. At one point, the Bears were down 21-6 in the fourth quarter, and they made a massive comeback to win the game on a touchdown by by DJ Moore. And yes, the Bears beat the Packers. That's a big win for the Bears to beat their rival. Avenge 2010. That's a big win for Chicago Bears fans. They've been needing that win. And today is, of course, the rest of the wildcard games. The Bills and Jaguars, 49ers, Eagles, and Chargers, Patriots. This is going to be a pretty fun game for the NFL, of course. Of course, around soccer, of course, some big soccer game matchups. Everton lost yesterday to Sunderland in the FA Cup. Though the good thing, though, is for us Toffees, this wasn't actually the worst defeat Everton suffered. The good thing is, thankfully, we're not Crystal Palace fans, because Crystal Palace just suffered probably the biggest upset in the competition's history. They lost 2-1 to Macclesfield FC, which if you don't know who they are, no one can blame you, but Macclesfield FC from the National League North, which is the 6th tier of English football, just beat the defending FA Cup winners. Which is actually insane to think about. Yes, from National League North. That is a massive upset. For the FA Cup. But yeah, Everton lost because they did a really dumb job in the penalty shootout. They could not shoot a penalty to save their lives. So yeah, today my favorite Spanish side, Espanyol's playing today. They're playing against Levante at Valencia. So pretty big stuff. So we're going to continue on forward with our national park. But man, look at the scenery here, guys. By the way, let's take a look at the scenery this morning. This is absolutely gorgeous, of course. Absolutely gorgeous scenery this morning. The scenery is fantastic here. We're about to hit Eureka Springs. Yeah, you can see the beauty of the Ozarks, of course. Here's these river valleys. Absolutely gorgeous, of course. We'll be making our way further down. Obviously. We're just about 161 nautical miles from our final stop here at Memorial Field in Hot Springs, Arkansas. So we're going to make our way further down, of course. So, of course, Firefly Air, by the way, our virtual airline for Tuto Murphy. We've officially getting a vote for our brand new hub. So our new hub choices, of course, are Dallas, Madrid, Montego Bay, Istanbul, and Bucharest. But yeah, I voted it, and obviously the hub I want to see most is Dallas, because trust me, Firefly needs another U.S. hub. We only have 2 major hubs in the United States. Which is Pittsburgh and Las Vegas, and they're both on the opposite sides of the country. So we needed something in the central part of the United States. Our European network is really robust, so I don't think that's a problem. We have so many European hubs. The U.S. really needed another hub. Of course, I voted Madrid second because Iberia is the last major area that really needs some in Europe. But Dallas is an area that I think will definitely be a hub. Because we can do tons of flights within Texas, of course. Texas is a huge state. So we have flights all across Texas, but also flights across New Mexico, Utah, Arizona. We have the entire basin, most of the country within medium haul distance. It'll be a really appreciated hub. And we can start connecting airports, which would be really nice. So we got that covered. So let's go ahead and go over another part of Hot Springs National Park here. So let's talk about the history of Hot Springs National Park, Hot Springs as a national park. Now, by Act of Congress in 1921, the park site name was officially changed from Hot Springs Reservation to Hot Springs National Park. The government acquired more lands, expanded to over 900 acres, including Hot Springs Mountain, North Mountain, West Mountain, Sugarloaf Mountain, and Winton Lake Park. It was later expanded to 5,800 acres of land, or 2,385 hectares of land. The springs are grouped around the base of Hot Springs Mountain with a well flow of over 500,000 gallons a day, and it's supplied to the various bathhouses, resulting income from concession fees going to the U.S. Treasury. The park has miles of roads and trails over the mountains, and it's open throughout the entire year. Of course, the first little bathhouses were little more than brush huts in log cabins placed over excavations cut in the rocks to receive hot water that flowed through the springs. Entrepreneurs soon developed more elaborate bathing facilities, featuring wooded troghs delivering water from the hillside springs to the bathhouses along the east bank of Hot Springs Creek. Some of the tufa cover in the hillside was excavated to accommodate the bathhouses. The narrow street along the west side of the creek was connected to the bathhouses by narrow bridges. After direct federal supervision was exercised in 1877, there were major improvements. The creek was covered with stone arches, and above it, a street of 100 feet wide was built. All the squatters were evicted, rubbish cleaned up, and a centralized plumbing was beginning. And that was completed around 1890. In 1950, central cooling towers limited the max temperature of the springs to a safe level, so individual bathhouses no longer need their own cooling systems. And finally, they operate their own campground at Gopa Gorge, 2 miles away from downtown Hot Springs. So that's a bit of the history of a park, like not very much history. It's much more urbanized, of course. So, but yeah, look at the scenery this morning. This is really nice. That's why I picked this kind of direction for the scenery this morning. Just absolutely gorgeous scenery, of course, this morning. Really beautiful area, of course. So, but yeah, the scenery this morning's great. Yeah, look at the scenery though. Absolutely gorgeous. So we'll turn left here soon. We're right near the Northwest Arkansas area. So hey, thank you, Typhon, for the band. But yeah, Typhon, I do apologize for getting this thing wrong, of course. If you guys aren't aware, I kind of got the whole national park order thing wrong. So who knows? Maybe I could stream next week a bit. But I'll just wait to get back. Like I said, I got this wrong. The stream order is wrong. So Sears ruined. Not really. We could just repeat the order again. Yeah, this is a gorgeous area, by the way. If you look at all the hills and stuff, you get some really cool views of the lakes. Of the artificial lakes, of course. But yeah, this scenery is definitely pretty nice. So we'll turn left here for 158 nautical miles as we head our way over down to Bird's backcountry. 5, 6, 8, 9. So we'll just turn around briefly. We'll turn around to our left as we now head our way down to Bird's backcountry. So we'll head on down this direction, of course. So let's talk a little bit more about the national park. Let's talk about the city of Hot Springs itself. Of course, Hot Springs itself is a resort city. It's governed under both state and municipal law. In the 1870s, African Americans in the town were concentrated around the Happy Valley area, north of Hot Springs Mountain, and there were churches for various denominations, including Baptists for white and black congregations. The National Park Service exercises no control or supervision over any matters connected to the city itself. The city starts on the other side of the Central Avenue from Bathhouse Road. Its development has extended beyond the narrow valley in which the springs are located, spread out over the open plain to the south and east. The climate is good throughout the year, so that makes it more people can visit this area. The elevation is around 600 feet above sea level, with surrounding hills rising another 600 feet. In the first half of the 20th century, the city operated primarily as a summer resort, but hotels have now long stayed open during the winter due to many northern patriots come to escape the winter cold. During the peak popularity of the hot springs until the 50s, the many patients staying for 3 weeks, 6 weeks, or longer were a major source of business for hotels, boarding houses, doctors, and drugstores. As the daily treatments only required an hour or two, the visitors' idle time created opportunities for other businesses, of course. Though those hot springs now are no longer needed now much these days because of better medicinal treatment and such. As a result. But of course, but Hot Springs itself has a really interesting history, and we'll get to talk about Hot Springs a bit more. But some of the things I do want to point out the city itself, outside of just the Hot Springs itself, Hot Springs as a city is rich in baseball history. It's the birthplace of spring training baseball, and it first opened that sort of stuff in 1886 when the Chicago White Stockings, now the Cubs, brought their players and coaches to prepare for the season. And as a result, Hot Springs is the birthplace of spring training baseball. Many teams have made their home in Hot Springs during spring training, from the Pittsburgh Pirates, the Brooklyn Dodgers, the Cincinnati Reds, the New York Yankees, and the Boston Red Sox all made their homes at Hot Springs during their time here. And it's not just mainly the white players. African American baseball teams, the Negro Leagues, also used the Hot Springs for spring training. The Pittsburgh Crawfords even used it to train for 3 years between 1932 and 1935, and made iconic in the Homestead Grays as well, with many Hall of Fame baseball players from both teams. And of course, for baseball history here too, Babe on St. Patrick's Day 1918, it was nicknamed the day that baseball changed forever because Babe Ruth, who was a pitcher at the time for the Red Sox, he hit a long home run that hit so far it landed into the Arkansas Alligator Farm and Petting Zoo. That was supposed to be estimated 573 feet. But the reason this was important, because it changed his position from being a pitcher to being a hitter. And of course, you probably all know what happened with him being a hitter, of course. Anyone that knows baseball history, Babe Ruth became the greatest home run hitter of his era, of course, and one of the greatest sluggers the game has ever seen, and still probably is among the greatest. So, pretty fun thing, of course. He became a legendary hitter, and the rest is history. But yeah, pretty important stuff. So, if you're a baseball fan, you probably know that Hot Springs is one of the most important areas outside of Major League Baseball stadiums that talk about baseball, of course. So, big stuff, of course, here for the national park. So, we're going to blitz through this area. We're going to reach. So, So, of course, a lot of stuff going on. Now, one of the more interesting things about this park, of course, so one of the other unique things here about the national park, of course, and something very important with this park, and is the bathing customs here at this park for the hot springs. And this is mainly the bathing customs that take place when using the hot springs. It was believed that the waters of the hot springs benefited diseases of the skin and blood, nervous affections, rheumatism, and kindred diseases, and the various diseases of women. In the case of tuberculosis and lung diseases and acute inflammatory diseases, the use of the waters was considered injurious, if not dangerous. Of course, the earliest bathing procedure consisted of mainly just reclining into the natural pools of the hot springs and cool creek water for long periods of time. During the 1820s, the crude vapor bath stood over the springs and bathers bathed in the vapors for extended periods of time. In the 1830s, they added wooden tubs. Of course, physicians then arrived in the 1850s. Although visitors did without their services, visitors remained from 1 week to 2 months. Of course, after the Civil War, a tub bath of 50 to 20 minutes was kind of common in the hot springs. Now, in the 1870s, of course, the bathing regimen became more diverse, and physicians prescribed various types of baths for patients. The period of time for these baths became 6 to 10 minutes, and the time in the steam bath shortened to 2 minutes with 1 bath a day. The treatment was by drinking and bathing in the waters, producing a profuse perspiration, which is considered an active agent in fighting diseases. Of course, an advised physician who's familiar with the use of the water is considered necessary to avoid injuries. And the hot baths were usually taken once a day for 3 weeks when a rest was necessary as well. So they have quite a few of the regimens, of course. The prescribed was the process prescribed in 1878 in the hot bath of 90 to 95 degrees for about 3 minutes, and this was followed by another 3 minutes with all but the head in a steam box. Of course, a lot of this is to fight diseases, of course. Then in the 1880s, they mainly used vapor cabinets, and the bathers sit in it for 10 to 20 minutes with the lid closely tied around the neck. Of course, although details of services were left to the bathhouse operators, the park superintendent set various rules. For example, in the 1930s, a tub bath cannot take more than 20 minutes and a shower no more than 90 seconds. During the next decade, shower time was reduced to a minute, with maximum temperatures specified for special services, about a bath of 98 degrees Fahrenheit, 5 minutes in the vapor cabinet, give 15 minutes of packs, followed by a tepid needle shower, light massage, and alcohol rubs. By 1980, one reporter described getting a 20-minute bath, 2 minutes in a steam bath, 15 minutes wrapped with hot packs, in a cooling room for 20 to 30 minutes. The modern facilities nowadays are oriented more to spa style or pool services, much more different than it was back in the 1800s. So yes, this is kind of important because obviously that's why they preserved this park in the first place, is to preserve the natural health of people. Speaking of which, we're going to climb up to 3,000 feet. So 500 feet a minute, we're going to climb up to 3,000 feet. So we can get above some of this, of course. But yeah, this is quite important. These procedures to how to teach people to bathe and all that stuff, that's very important for So we'll continue on moving forward here. So we're going to go around this way, of course. So one other interesting thing about the Hot Springs National Park, of course, is some of the bathhouses. There's quite a few paid bathhouses here in the park. There have been nearly 2 dozen paid bathhouses operating at the same time, with none of those within the bathhouse row facilities. None of these bathhouses were associated with hotels, hospitals, or sanatoria, or sanatoriums, actually. The water is same for all, but the prices charged of the baths has been varied according to equipment, accommodations, and services for each facility. The charges for the service of the attendants are the same and include the necessities except for towels, blankets, bathrobes, laundry, rubbing mercury, or the handing of the valids. Of course, this area was popular with baseball players during the 20th century and was used by some of the teams for spring training. Now, in 1929, the price for these baths ranged from $1 to $1.40, while the course for 21 baths was $16 to $24, and that was back in 1929. Lord knows how much things have priced nowadays at the um, in the springs. Um, um, but looking at some of the pricing, of course, and um, um, nowadays, if you want a traditional bathing package here at the Buckstaff Bath for our national park, you have to pay $101 to get a hot springs bath, of course, at the Buckstaff Springs, which is where they now do it nowadays. So yeah, it's of course the Whirlpool Mineral Bath is now $45, but if you get the traditional bathing package, um, it's about $101. But so that is something to consider nowadays when you compare the prices. Facilities were segregated actually until the civil rights legislative. For example, if you're white, you could bathe at the Arlington Hotel, Fortis, Buckstaff, the Eastman Hotel, Maurice, and more. But if you're an African American, of course, there are quite a few. You're offered at the Pythian, Woodman of Union, and the National Baptist Hotel Sanatorium. Nowadays, it's now equal to all people. At present in Bathhouse Row, there's only two operating bathhouses, the Buckstaff and the Clawpaw. The Fortis is now turned into a visitor center, by the way, and of course, it instead gives tours of the facilities that have been renovated to their original appearance. The Ozark is now housing the Museum of Contemporary Art, and its space can be rented as a reception hall. The Arlington Hotel, Austin Hotel and Convention Center, and the Springs Hotel and Spa also offer hot spring baths using the park water, of course. So yes, there are a few areas, but the old ones still being used as bathhouses are those two. So that's definitely a very important thing to consider while you're here at the national park. So mm, so that's definitely. So we're about to enter into the mighty Ozarks, of course. So this is the Ozarks, a very well-known mountain chain, very popular area for bush pilots. Bush pilots absolutely love this region, of course, in Arkansas. Lots of really cool airfields in this region, and we're going to be landing into one very soon. Our first stop of the day. We're going to be landing here at Bird's Backcountry. So that will be our first stop of the day. So we'll get here pretty soon. But this is a gorgeous area, by the way. Just look at the scenery this morning. Absolutely gorgeous. What a beautiful area here today. So here it is, guys. Our first stop of the day is coming up very soon. We're going to go ahead and descend. Our airport should be over the mountains, of course. We're going to fly through and land from the valley, of course. So we're just about 104 nautical miles from our final stop. So we got a bit more to go. But what a beautiful trip in the Ozarks. This is absolutely fantastic. Here in Arkansas. So here we go. We're going to land. Here it is. Backcountry. And our airstrip's down here. So we're going to land right here, guys. And we're down. Like I said, nice thing with the Slim Savage is you don't need much of a runway to land with this bad boy. So we'll stay right here for a bit. If you guys want to join on later, we're in the Southeast Asia server. So we'll get ready to get going soon. So we'll get ready to go up pretty soon, in about a minute. So we're going to get ready for our second leg and final leg of the stream. So let's go ahead and get this up in the air, 3,000 feet, and we're going to at 188 degrees. So we're going to go ahead and take off here. We don't really need a lot of flaps. And up, 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 and away we go. We're belting it through. Yeah, we're climbing this at 3,000 feet up. So we're about to climb up to 3,000 feet. So we'll climb down to 2,000 feet, 2,500 feet. As we finally make our way down through the Ozarks, of course. So let's go ahead and talk a bit more about our national park, of course. One of the more notable landmarks here at this national park is the former Army and Navy Hospital of Hot Springs National Park. Now, the former Army and Navy General Hospital were also supplied with the hot springs, and they were located in the southern edge of the Bathhouse Road along the base of Hot Springs Mountains, and it was administered by the War Department for the benefit of military members, officers of public health services, and honorably discharged veterans. The waters had an established reputation for suffering from illnesses, and admission to officers was reserved for cases of serious and obstinate character, which, though resisting ordinary methods of relief, which promised a rapid and permanent recovery from the use of the water. But of course, this area was abandoned in the 2000s, of course. It was first operated by the state for 60 years, since 1933, but nowadays it's been abandoned due to the declining enrollment at the Career Development Center. But it's still an important landmark here at this park, so that's definitely something important to consider here when we're visiting this area. But one thing pretty notable about this area here, of course, it's now pretty much abandoned. Of course, there have been several disasters here at the national park. Of course, during the Civil War, a large part of the valley was burned, presumably by Union troops. As in many other cities, the fire has been a risk even before Caesar's development, as there's been a couple of fire disasters happening here, including 1878 when a fire burned 8 hours in the city, claiming 150 buildings, including hotels, bathhouses, and restaurants. And there was another fire in 1905, which started in the Grand Central Hotel and burned 25 blocks of the southern section of Hot Springs. The city also had been subject of flooding because it is a narrow valley. When a severe rainstorm hit in 1923, with mountains surrounding each side of the city, the water flooded from the slopes of the mountain, funneled into Central Avenue, and reached a depth of 9 feet and destroyed several commercial businesses. There was also a severe flood in 1956 that filled Central Avenue with 3 feet of rushing water, causing property damage. And a series of storms in 1990 dropped more than 13 inches into the city, causing flash floods. But one notable incident that happened was in 2014 when a fire broke out at the Majestic Hotel, and it took 75 firefighters over 22 hours to extinguish the blaze. And surviving portions of the Majestic Hotel were condemned, and the building property was auctioned off. And people have been trying to save the hotel from condemnation, but despite the activists, the Hot Springs board of directors demolished the building, and the remainder of it was razed in 2016. The former site of the former hotel was sold to a private developer, but the company backed out of the project in 2022. So, yes, there have been several disasters that happened here at the park. Of course, fire is a pretty big concern here, obviously, and that's why there's been quite a few areas. I mean, this area, unlike many other national parks, has much more human activity, so it's much more than likely human involvement could end up being an issue, of course. So. So we'll continue on this way. Of course, we're about to reach the Ouachita Forest. This is the area where Hot Springs is more connected to. So in terms of other stuff going on, of course, not much. Next week is going to be no streams, of course. We have no streams next week. I'm going to be heading out of town Thursday. I'll be heading out of town on Thursday. We're going to have 11 days in Florida, of course. We're going to have an 11-day trip from the 16th to, I believe, the 27th. Let me check my thing. But I'm going to be gone for 11 days. So here's a week. 1, 2, 4. Yeah, I'm going to be gone. So what? So yeah, day 12 is going to be. Yeah, it's going to be back on Wednesday. It's going to be 11 whole days. So yeah, we only got quite a bit more things left. So Our next slide, of course, I want to cover is the government-free baths here. Now, of course, Congress established a free bathhouse here in 1878 on December 16th. It was known as the Row Hole Mud Pit were closed, and the first government-free bathhouse operated here. And the government-free bathhouse was a concrete building full equipped for beating large people under sanitary conditions. Then, of course, they mainly gave a lot of these baths a year for the poor. The applicants for free baths were required to make an oath that they were without and unable to attain means to pay for the baths, and violation would be a misdemeanor subject or imprisonment. Tickets were issued to those after examination who found to be suffering from diseases which were reasonably expected to be benefited from the baths. Of course, during the 1880s, a few of the open springs gradually dried up. Cornhole, a popular spring where people soaked their feet, dried up in 1882. Other hot springs were either covered by the National Park Service or bathhouse owners to prevent pollution. They built a new one in 1904 with separate facilities for black and white patrons. Because, Jim Crow, and the materials were made of poor quality. So they had to build a new one off the reservation in 1922. So, as well, of course, the free bathhouse was closed in 1957 as it was more economical to have a few indignant customers served by the commercial bathhouses. So they no longer do the free baths, they now have to be for the people who have to pay for it. As a result, so they don't really do any of the free bathing houses anymore nowadays. So now we see the Ouachita Mountains to our left. We can see the Ouachita National Forest and the Ouachita Mountains, of course, to our left. So we have some pretty interesting stuff. So we can see the beautiful mountains to our left, of course. So one very interesting thing, though, about the national park, of course. Now, of course, there is some natural things about this national park. Of course, like all national parks, there are plants and animals that live here at the park. In terms of flora, this area is primarily forest. The northern slopes of the ridges and basins here at the park provide suitable habitat for deciduous forests dominated by oak and hickory trees. And the southern sides of the ridges are dominated by pine trees. There are about 230 acres of unlocked pine and oak forest in the North and Hot Springs Mountains and 90 acres on Sugarloaf Mountain. These oak growth forests contain shirley pine, blackjack oak, and white oak, with many of the trees being over 130 years old. And there's a few that's actually over 200 years old. Now, of course, in the area, plains bison, elk, cougar, and red wolf used to live in this region until the Europeans settled and they left the region. Nowadays, you can find fauna including white-tailed deer, wild turkey, squirrel, rabbits, Virginia opossum, gray fox, coyote, skunk, raccoon, gopher, long-tailed weasel, mink, rat, chitlunk, frog, and the 9-banded armadillo. Yes, you can find the armadillos here up north. So definitely pretty interesting animals, and yes, you can find the 9-banded armadillo. Fun fact about this thing: these armadillos live from the United States, from around Arkansas and all that, in Colorado, to as far south as Argentina and Uruguay. And in fact, the range of this thing's only going to increase more and more because of the warmer climates. So yeah, armadillos are going to be more common, of course. Yeah, pretty interesting animals that live up this far north. So, so we're going to continue on forwards to the scenery, of course. So we are now moving on. So of course we're going to go over through the Lake Oachila, and that is because it's dammed by the Blakely Mountain Dam. It connects to the Ouachita River. Um, so, mm, so we'll continue on moving forward. Of course, we got how many more slides? Two more slides after this. We'll talk more about the slides later. So we're going to be approaching the Ouachita Mountains, of course. The Ouachita National Forest, by the way, in Arkansas and Oklahoma, yes, this national forest is in both states, is the oldest national forest in the southern United States, encompassing 1.78 million acres of land, including the scenic mountain range. This area is rich in history. Rugged and scenic mountains were explored by Europeans starting with 1541 by Hernando de Soto's party of Spaniards. But this area is known for the rare maple leaf oak is home to that, but also white oak, post oak, and black chalk oak. Lots of oaks across this area. And this area is very popular for a lot of hiking, mountain biking, and horseback riding. Also, canoeing and fishing are very popular in quite a few of the rivers in the forest. So, some pretty cool stuff. This is a absolutely really cool national forest, of course. So we'll turn left here soon. We'll talk about the last two slides of the stream, of course. So we're going to turn left here very soon. So we're going to turn left and make our way down. So we're going to head down this way through the Ouachita Mountains. So definitely a beautiful mountain range, of course. Like I said, this area is absolutely gorgeous, though. It's really nice. So yeah, I'm gonna miss a lot of you guys when you're gonna be gone, of course. Yeah, you can definitely see some of the mountains here in the Ouachita Mountains, of course. So we'll turn left here through the National Forest and we'll make our way to Lake Ouachita. So we are 56 nautical miles after our to our final destination here at Kilo Hotel Oscar Tango. So, being that, of course, we'll get through here. So we'll turn left here. We'll turn more left soon once we get this to reach our next waypoint. So we got two final slides to cover here this morning, of course. So one very interesting thing here about this park, of course, is the park's geology, and this is a big part of this park. You see, the thermal mountains are situated here in the Ouachita Mountains in central Arkansas. These springs emerge in a gap between Hot Springs Mountain and West Mountain, about 1,500 feet long by 400 feet wide, at altitudes between 576 to 683 feet above sea level. The springs predominantly are composed of hot water from thousands of feet underground, mixed with some shallow, cold groundwater. There are currently 33 thermal springs in the park that are presumed to be flowing. Thermal water from 33 thermal springs is collected and monitored at a central reservoir, which distributes the combined discharge for public use and consumption. The rock types in the area include shale, which impede groundwater movement, while fractured chert, novaculite, and sandstone generally support the groundwater movement. Now, the water from these springs comes from rain, which falls in the mountains to the north and northeast, flowing downward through cracked rock about 1 foot a year. And the mountain water migrates around depths between 4,500 to 7,500 feet and achieves high temperatures in the deep section of flow path before rising along fault and fracture conduits. The heat comes from the natural rocky heating of rocks as depth increases. The composition of the water is heat rainwater, which is now approached by a source, so there's no volcanic action involved in these hot springs. The result is mildly alkaline, pleasant tasting solution with dissolved calcium carbonate. Now, the exposed rocks here in the vicinity are mainly sedimentary rocks of the Mississippian to Ordovician age, with the exception of younger igneous rocks. Most dikes are around less than 5 feet wide. And of course, there's quite a few major shale and all that in the area. So it's mainly rocks of stuff. Sedimentary rocks are mainly the big piece of geology located here in the park. So we're going to go ahead and turn left. So definitely some important scenery and definitely some important information about rocks here at the park. So we're going to continue on forward for the forest, of course. When we arrive in the lake, we'll talk about one final slide, of course, as we arrive our way over to our last stop, of course. So we got one last major stop. So, so we're going to go ahead and continue on for the forest, of course. 44 nautical miles out. We're just one leg away. So, so we're about to arrive into Lake Ouachita, right ahead of us. So we're going to talk about our last slide of the day. We got one final one here. So our final slide for this morning, of course, is the water composition. Of course, the water of the hot springs comes from the same D source, but the surface appearance of the springs differed. What was called hot spring, mud spring, had a tubid ooze where there was no danger of being scalded. Springs acquired names such as magnesia, big iron, and arsenic because of the different materials. Big iron's water, which significantly dissolved iron, would precipitate ochreous crust and stains. Arsenic spring, on the other hand, actually does not contain any detectable sources of its namesake. The water from many springs is now combined in one supply, with the total water varying between 750,000 to 950,000 US gallons a day. The temperature averages about 143 degrees Fahrenheit, and the maximum temperature declined about 5 degrees since records have been kept. Interestingly, in 1905, curative characteristics were described to radium, and Bertram Boltwood of Yale examined these waters. Were ascribed to radium. There is a measurable amount of radioactivity here due to the dissolved radon gas with some radium. At the time, collection and distribution equipment was designed to retain the radon gas, while it's now designed to allow it to escape. The level of exposure to radiation that results from bathing appears to be similar to that if it would result for the same number from sitting in the sun for the same period of time. The park waters can still well within state limits and similar to other natural waters throughout the world. Drinking water here is dispensed from several hot water jug fountains. The hot water is naturally potable. 2 cold water springs in Happy Hollow and Winning Springs are treated using ozone filtration. Regulations prohibit private individuals from selling the park's waters, of course. So that means you can't sell the park's water privately. You have to do it for official stuff. So you can't make money from it, okay? So that concludes our last slide of the day. So that is our final slide for this stream, of course. So we're going to go ahead and get down over to hmm, here it is, guys. This is Lake Oichia. So we're going to go ahead and do that. So, beautiful lake here, absolutely gorgeous. Hmm. So this is Oichiwa River. This is Lake Oichiwa. This is the artificial lake here. Hey, good to see you, Bojan Bio. Good to see you. Is it okay to use flying hot toss from... Yes, absolutely. In fact, Bojan, yes, that would be a really good choice for a first-timer, is getting the HOTAS from Thrustmaster MSFS Edition. Yes. In fact, that's what I have right now, believe it or not. I've had this since 2021, actually, when I started streaming. In fact, I have all of this, the pedals and stuff, ever since 2020, and they're still working perfectly well for me. So yes, absolutely. That's a fantastic choice. But welcome on in, Bojan. I hope you're doing well this morning. We're doing Hot Springs National Park here today in beautiful Arkansas. We started our trip in Branson, Missouri. We went down through some of the lakes and stuff here. So we will have a bush lane today. We'll have a bush lane here at Hot Springs Mountain Tower, our only bush laning of the stream, by the way. So we're about to run to Hot Springs, Arkansas soon. So I hope. Which GPU are you using? Good question. I'm looking at my system right now. I guess maybe I should put exclamation point specs and probably software, of course. Devices. My GPU, by the way, my game is a AMD Ryzen 9 7900X 12-core processor. That's my GPU, of course. A pretty powerful one. I just got me a new PC just this past Christmas. Super nice AMD Ryzen 9, which is super advanced 12-core processor. She's an absolute beast. Oh, it's CPU. Oh. CPU, the computer processing. It's my graphics card is an RTX 7050 Ti is my thing as well. What is graphic card? Oh, graphic card is a NVIDIA GeForce RTX 5070 Ti, which is a pretty nice system. By the way, it's not 5090, but it's more than enough for what I'm running in this simulator. But very, very nice system though. No, you're more than welcome, Bojan. You're always more than welcome to ask. Oh, that seems like a nice system. A 5080 Astral? Wow. That's a pretty nice system you got there. Oh, that's a pretty expensive one. Between $1,300 to $1,400. That's a very high quality one. Graphics system. That's nice. That's actually quite high end. Like I said, I'm not super familiar with all of his high tech stuff, but that seems like very nice for what you're running. Yeah, you can put in ultra settings. I'm in medium settings. I don't really need the ultra, because if I run an ultra, yes, I can have nicer graphics, but I'm also sacrificing a bit of performance. And also the temperatures. I'm trying to keep this lasting long, so I'm going to lower the settings a bit. So I'm going to mainly use it on medium settings, but you can go... I don't have 4K though. No 4K. 1080 HD is what I'm using. No 4K. So we're about to arrive into Mountain Pine, and we're going to be very close, 16 nautical miles to our final stop. Yeah, definitely pretty great here as well. We just finished up our slides for today, of course, which is Hot Springs. if you look at the pinned comment, it's about the national park website. It features all the things you can do here at the national park. There is hiking trails in this park. Like I said, it's not a trails national park. Hot Springs is much more for the bathing water, of course, the hot springs itself. Oh yeah, definitely. No worries, Bojan. I don't blame you for asking questions. That's actually an important part of it is chatting with you and answering your questions. I'd be more happy to. Like I said, I'll answer them to the best of my ability. But yeah, flying with a Cessna 172 is always a good choice to get started. A Cessna 172 is just perfect. There's a reason every flying school has a Cessna 172 because it's very easy to fly the plane. It's cheap to produce, and you'll be very familiar with it. It's like I said, Cessna 172 is easy to fly. And it's got good flight handling, good glide, good lane speed, and it's reliable. It's a very easy plane to fly. You can't go wrong with it. Oh, nice! You're gonna make some videos too. That's really cool, Bojan. I would be interested in seeing that, of course. Yes, I'm flying the TCA Airbus. It's Thrustmaster TCA Airbus side stick and throttle quadrant. It's the TCA Airbus. That's what I have. It's the captain. You can get the captain's pack for it for featuring the add-on stuff too for $279. But yeah, you can't. But it's perfect for like beginners and stuff because you can get it for cheap. Just overall, really good addition. That's definitely well worth the money. White one, I have the Airbus edition, but you can get. But yeah, I have the Airbus edition, which is pretty nice. But no, I've always had the Airbus edition. My dad got to me for Christmas in 2020. I always had the Airbus edition, but you can get the regular one too for even cheaper. It's just I have the Airbus version since that was what my dad gave to me. He bought for me. Yeah, but like I said, you can't go wrong with it. It's definitely great for the beginners and stuff. Of course, I don't want you to go anywhere near the advanced things people do because there are some absolutely crazy setups people have done with their flight sims. I don't recommend it for you, obviously, because those cost a serious amount of money. So we're going to go ahead and slow down for a bit. So this here is the Hot Springs Mountain Range. So this here is the Hot Springs Mountain Range, of course. These are the mountains of the national park. Can't go wrong with that. We're in this. So this plane right here is a Slim Savage Norden. It's a bush plane, and this is perfect for the backcountry flying that we're doing here in this national park. Yes, I'm flying with mainly assistance off. The only assistance I really have is gyro drift. So I don't fly with mainly any assistances. The only one I do fly is the gyro drift. Because of gyro drift. That's the only thing I have assistance on is that because I'm not really into it. But everything else is off. But like I said, you can customize it for whatever you want yourself to be. You can make it as simple as you can, or you can make it more difficult. So, like I said, this sim gives you a lot of freedom to do what you want. Now, of course, we will have a bush landing here at the top of Hot Springs Mountain, of course. So we'll land Hot Springs Tower, of course. And we'll land here, and we'll get you a good view of the park. Like I said, this is a very urban park. I think it's one of the only handful of urban parks here in the United States. I think the only ones that you can consider urban parks that are pretty urbanized is Biscayne National Park in, of course, there's Gateway Arch National Park in Missouri is very urbanized, and you also have a very urbanized park at around Biscayne National Park in Florida is pretty urbanized. So, and also one fun fact about this park too, Bojan, this national park was established before the concept of a national park even existed. Because this thing dates back to 1832. So this is a very old park. And speaking of which, we actually have the tower as a landmark. It's actually already POI. I didn't know about that. I know this isn't going to be the greatest landing on Earth. Not a great landing, but here is the tower for this park. So here it is, guys. This here is the National Park Tower. This is the mountain tower. So if you want to actually explore this region a bit, oh, I need to put on the parking brake. Nice job, Viper. So yeah, you can get X out of your plane though too and get a good view. So yeah, this here is the mountain tower here connecting to the park. So you can do this and you can take a picture. Look how cool that is. I'm flying. I really fly with autopilot heading for this plane, but there's a really cool program. If you're on PC, this program will actually change your flight simming forever. It's an external program called Little Nav Map. Here's the program website here on the jet. Yes, I do use add-ons, but this here is your Little Nav Map, because look at this. This is Little Nav Map. This little beauty right here on your right screen, this has a map of everything in the world. It loads into your, it connects to your sim via SimConnect, and it connects directly to your simulator. You can do flight plans and stuff, and this is what I do for every one of my streams, is use the system. Of course, I use Google Earth Map. You can import Google Earth Map data into this of Google Maps, and you can now do it, and this is what I use for all my flight plans. This will forever change your flight simming. It makes things so much easier. It makes flight planning a lot simpler, and most importantly too, it makes planning out your flights better too. So this is what I use for my flight simming. Really cool stuff. It is a super, super neat program. I highly recommend it. It's completely free. And the best part is, Little Nav Map is completely free. You don't have to pay a single cent. There's a lot of things in flight sim that cost money, but not this one. So we're going to go about to the tower, of course. I have two monitors, actually. My left monitor in this way is for the game, of course, is for the flight sim. The other monitor is for everything else. So that includes my video gaming and stuff. That means my stream pages are here. I also have, this is where I put my notes for my content. And this is also where I do plenty of other stuff. So I know this isn't taking off can be a pain. So that's why slew mode is needed for some of this. So, but yeah, I have two monitors, Bojan. Two monitors. So this here is Hot Springs, Arkansas, by the way. So yes, this is a very popular urban area here. I know it's not photogrammetry in the sim, sadly, but this is still really important. So across this central road right here to our right, that is Bathhouse Row. This is where the historic district's at. That's where you find all the bathhouses that people used during the 19th and early 20th century. They were using it here. So that's what they use for their bathing purposes, is here. So pretty cool stuff. But yes, I have 2 monitors. So we're about to reach our final stop here at Memorial Field. This is the main airport for Hot Springs, Arkansas. But this airport is mainly used for general aviation. It's a GA airport, but historically it did have airline service back since the 40s, of course. But this is mainly used for GA nowadays. So, pretty big stuff. So we're about to make our landing here at here. Now the good thing about this plane in particular, this is a bush plane, and what bush planes are really great at is taking off and landing in short distances, and you'd be incredibly surprised how easy it is to take off and land with this, how quickly you can take off with this. Now, of course, the only detriment for this is a conventional configuration, not the tricycle, but this is the conventional, the old-fashioned way they did it. It's tail wheel. It's not a tricycle landing gear, so you might have to worry about tipping it over. Now, of course, when I did the bush landing, I messed it up. But I don't think I'll mess it up here. But a beautiful area here today. So we're just going to put 2 flights of flaps. And you'd be surprised how quickly we can get this thing stopped. So here we go. Here we go. Bleed speed. And look at that. Look at that. We just stopped like that. We stopped on a dime. So we'll just park right here and wrap up the stream. So that's it, everyone. We made it to Memorial Field here in Arkansas. What a fun way to end this stream, of course. A beautiful airport and a beautiful route here today. This has been a great route. I know we did this national park stuff in the wrong order today. We were supposed to do Zion. Technically, we did the correct 15 stream. Well, we'll just do it on the week I come back. We'll do Zion and get the park order back up to the way it needs to be. So thank you guys so much for joining me on this morning stream. I hope to see you again when we come back. So we're going to go say hello to my good friend Sergeant Staff, and we'll see you on the January the 30th, actually. And thank you so much, people, for coming in. Hope to see you again very soon. Take care, everyone, and have a fantastic rest of your weekend. And see you all again in 10 days. Have a great rest of your weekend. Goodbye.